Welcome back to another episode of the Simplify Senior Transitions podcast, the show where we explore real stories, expert advice, and powerful resources to help you confidently navigate your loved one's move into senior living. Today's guest is someone I've been looking forward to having on the show. Kayvon Cerna is a senior placement specialist with years of experience helping families find the right senior living solution, even in the most emotionally challenging circumstances. What makes Kayvon stand out isn't just her professionalism, it's her ability to manage the invisible challenges families don't even realize they're facing. From complex family dynamics to legal red flags to researching community citations and compliance history before placing a loved one. This conversation will open your eyes to see how much happens behind the scenes in senior placement and why it matters more than you think. Let's get into it.
Welcome to the Simplify Senior Transitions podcast, where we help families navigate senior living, real estate, and everything in between. Hosted by Senior Transition Specialist Dale Corpus, this show brings you expert insights, real solutions, and stress-free strategies to make senior transitions simple. Ready to dive in? Let's go.
All right, and we're back, everybody. Kayvon, welcome to the show. How are you today?
Good, Dale. How are you?
I'm great. My kids just started spring break today, but here I am working because
Likewise.
I really enjoy what I do, and I love just chatting about senior living and how we could help our seniors. So, that being said, I wanted to ask you, I want to start from the beginning. How
Okay.
did you get into the world of senior living placement?
All right. Well, I spent over a decade working directly with older adults in various settings, from independent living, assisted living, memory care, adult day health centers, and skilled nursing facilities, you name it.
Mm-hmm.
But what drew me to senior living placement was witnessing firsthand how overwhelmed families can feel during a sensitive time. They often have to make tough decisions under pressure, unsure of what's best for their loved one. So over time, I realized that my experience combined with my educational background in healthcare, healthcare administration, and my passion for seniors uniquely positioned me to be the guide that they need. So I've always felt a calling to advocate for seniors, and placement was just a natural extension of that. It's helping families navigate the chaos with clarity, compassion, and practical solutions.
What was your very first placement like, and what did you learn from it that still sticks with you today?
This is a great question. So I will never forget my first placement. I got a call from a daughter who told me that her dad was a skilled nursing facility and she needed to find a boarding care home for him immediately before his scheduled discharge for the following Monday.
Mm-hmm.
We moved quickly. We toured two places the very next day, then another place on Wednesday. And by the end of that day, she had made a decision. And we spent Thursday coordinating the transition, signing paperwork, discussing logistics.
Yeah.
And by Friday, we moved her dad in. And what I learned from this is how important it is to be a calm presence in the middle of chaos.
Yeah.
So families can feel overwhelmed and unsure. So providing that steady support can make all the difference in creating a smooth transition. So it's not just about finding a place. It's also about making the experience less stressful.
Got it. And families don't often realize how much detective work goes into what you do. What's something you do for clients that they're usually surprised to learn about?
Yeah, honestly, you already said it. It's the detective work. They'll say things like, oh, you've already called the doctor. You know their DSS history. You've noticed the staffing patterns. It's more than just finding a nice building. It's about digging deep. I'm reviewing citations. I'm asking about staff turnover and doing all the behind the scenes research that they don't even realize needs to be done. So my goal is to ensure that their peace of mind and often before they even realize it's something that they do need to worry about.
Okay. So you talked about citations. What gets cited? Can you give me an example of what a citation is?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it could be as simple as leaving bleach on the counter, right? Those
Hmm.
all need to be locked away. Or it could be not jotting down, when a resident took their medication. It could be very simple as that. And it is my obligation to bring that up to our clients, no matter how little the citation is. And it's really up to them to, make that informed decision based on what the information that I've given them.
Okay. And are all these citations, are they all public record or only do you have access to them or does anybody have access to them?
It is public record, it's really knowing where to search for. I mean, everyone has access to it. It's just more of majority of the people don't know where to even go to access it. And that's what placement agency do is we do all that detective work for you. So you don't have to worry about, spending that time doing that on your own.
Okay. What about even looking up online reviews? I mean, like Google business reviews or Yelp reviews. I'm sure that some of
Yes.
these places have reviews. Is that correct?
Absolutely. We do all of that. We check Yelp reviews. We check, testimonials, Google reviews. I mean, you name it, we will do the work for you. And if there is something very concerning in those reviews, like I said, it is my obligation to let my clients know.
Okay. Got it. Now, how do you personally define success when helping a family transition a loved one into care?
Okay, well, for me, success is when a family tells me, I finally slept last night,
Mm,
or when they're expressing their gratitude with a sigh of relief.
mm.
It's really in those moments, in their voice and the way they speak, that you can truly hear how much weight has been lifted off their shoulders.
Mhm. Good. That's awesome. Now, I want to talk about more things behind the scenes that you do. Let's talk about licensing and compliance. How do you check citations or compliance issues at facilities before recommending them? Where do you go?
Yeah, so I use the California's DSS website religiously. I comb through inspections reports, look at complaint histories, and I pay attention to patterns, like repeat violations or understaffing.
Mhm.
If a place has something concerning, like I said earlier, I have an obligation as a senior living consultant to bring this up. My clients count on me for transparency, and transparency is what I will be giving them.
Okay. Now you threw out an acronym called DSS. Yeah, I know what it means, but I don't think everybody else does. Can you explain what DSS is?
Sure, it's Department of Social Services.
Okay. Have you ever ruled out a community based on Department of Social Services citations that a family didn't even know existed?
Absolutely. So there was one community that looked amazing on paper in the brochure, great amenities, beautiful grounds. But when I checked their citations, I found multiple substantiated complaints within a short period of time.
Yeah.
So the family didn't even know that kind of information was available to them, to the public.
Yeah.
So, I took the time to walk them through what the citations meant and what that could potentially mean for their loved one's care,
Yeah.
and then we moved on. So they were grateful for that later on.
Okay. I get it. Um, what role does the gut feeling or intuition play in your process? For example, have you ever gotten a gut feeling during a tour or conversation that changed your recommendation?
Yes, all the time. If something feels off during a tour, even if the building is spotless,
Hmm.
I trust that gut feeling. Maybe it's how the staff is talking to each other or how a resident seems ignored in the hallway. That instinct does come from years in the field and knowing what real care looks like and feels like.
So, how do you vet communities beyond the brochure or their sales pitch?
Yeah, good question. So I visit the communities often. I build relationship with staff. I talk to caregivers and I check in or I check on the staffing ratios.
Hmm.
And sometimes I even talk to some of their current residents.
Okay.
I listen to the residents themselves. You'd be surprised what you learn from a casual chat in
Yeah.
the dining room or during their happy hour.
Wow. Now, what kinds of red flags do you look out for when touring a family? I know you mentioned a few of them already. Can you just
Uh-huh.
elaborate on that more?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm only going to name a few. I mean, there's a lot to look out for.
Yeah.
But a few, I would say it would be poor lighting, strong odors,
Hmm.
um, when you're walking and touring and staff are avoiding eye
Hmm.
contact, when residents look disengaged or unkept.
Yeah.
Um, Another big one is high leadership turnover. When executive director changes, every few months or every 6 months,
Mhm.
that often to me, it signals deeper issues within the senior living community.
Okay.
It's it to me, it says there's instability or poor management.
Okay.
So I on top of that, I also pay attention to whether the facility has an adequate number of staff members
Yeah.
to meet the care and the needs of their residents.
Okay.
So if the staff seems like they're overwhelmed, to me that's a major, red flag.
Okay. Makes sense. Now, have you ever caught a potential issue early that saved a family from making a mistake?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I'm going to bring this back to when I was a recreation therapist.
Yeah.
So I had a situation where I caught an issue early on that really helped the family. I was working with a family whose mother needed memory care.
Yeah.
And during that tour of the potential community, I noticed that the staff did not seem very engaged with the residents at all.
Okay.
There wasn't much interaction or activity happening, which immediately to me, it raised a red flag.
Yep.
So as a former recreation therapist, I know how important it is. I mean, I can't emphasize that enough. How important it is to have an engaging and structured program for residents,
Okay.
especially for those who with memory care needs
Hmm.
you know? So what happened was I pointed it out to the family and they hadn't even noticed the lack of engagement.
Hmm.
And after discussing the importance of activities and meaningful interactions with their mom, we decided to keep looking. We eventually found a place where the staff was more attentive. There were structured and engaging activities, and so the families were grateful for that, for
Hmm.
the extra attention to detail, knowing that their mom would be in a place where they would get the care and the stimulation that she needs.
Got it. I want to segue a little bit into um, complex family dynamics. I know that placement agents have to deal with a lot of emotions, a lot of, family situations. Some of them aren't so easy to deal with, but you have to be able to maneuver through them gracefully.
Mhm.
So, what's one of the most emotionally intense family situations you've helped navigate?
Yeah, another great question. So, one of the most emotionally intense cases that I remember I worked on involved a husband
Mhm.
who had been with his wife for over 60 plus years. She had advanced dementia. And while, deep in his heart, he knew that moving her to a boarding care home was the
Yep.
safest and most supportive option.
Mhm.
However, he was carrying an overwhelming amount of guilt and
Yeah.
grief. He felt as if he was failing her.
Yeah.
Our conversation was layered with emotion.
Mhm.
What really stuck with me though was how powerful it was to just simply sit with him
Yep.
in those feelings and validate them.
Yeah.
I did not rush him. I did not try to convince him. I just let him talk and I listened.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. And I know sometimes one sibling wants assisted living and another wants to keep mom at home, for example. How do you manage those kinds of conflicts?
Yeah, this is something that I encounter
Hmm.
quite a lot. What I do personally is I treat each voice with respect,
Yeah.
but I always bring it back to their loved one's needs. If one sibling wants mom at home
Mm-hmm.
and another one wants to move mom to an assisted living,
Yeah.
I help them visualize what each option really looks like,
Yep.
logistically and emotionally. Sometimes I'd go to their home and I'd have my laptop ready with me with my presentation, letting them know what in-home care is versus assisted living.
Yeah.
Um, facts do help.
Yeah.
And compassion, it helps even more. So it's really just meeting them where they are at.
Okay. Now, do you ever mediate family conversations directly, or do you prefer to work behind the scenes to guide the process?
Um, you know, with this, it really depends on the family and it's a case by case situation.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I feel like I'm front and center,
Mm-hmm.
helping them have the hard conversations. Other times I'll be working behind the scenes, coaching each one of them
Mm-hmm.
so that we could get an alignment before sitting at the same table. Like I said earlier, it's really about meeting people where they are.
Okay. Okay. Now, what do you say to adult children who disagree with their parents' wishes or who don't believe their parents need care yet?
Oh, okay. This is a tough one. Because I get this a lot
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
That's always tough. So I remind them that aging doesn't really mean losing autonomy.
Okay.
If mom says, or if mom is a sound of mind
Yeah.
and she says no, that no has to be respected. But I also explore compromises, right?
Yeah.
So maybe I'll offer or suggest short term respite care.
Okay.
So it's really about easing into transition without actually forcing it.
Can you define what respite care means?
Yes. So respite care is when it's usually for the caregiver,
Yeah.
but it also still could be applied to the resident. So let's say I am been caring for my mom and I do it 24/7,
Yeah.
right? Um, I need what's called a respite care because I need to make sure that I'm also getting the rest that I need in order to be the best caregiver that I
Yeah.
could be for mom. Hence, someone is going to step, in to take care of mom temporarily.
Yeah.
So that's respite care.
So, how do you help families who are stuck in denial about their loved one's condition?
Yeah, I actually encounter this quite often, and really, it's really providing gentle truths. I might say something within the line of, "Hey, I understand it's hard to see changes when you're close to them,
Yeah.
but here's what I'm seeing based on my experience." And I would provide examples that kind of reflect their situation. And sometimes it's really just hearing it from a neutral voice that makes it click.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, how do you build trust with seniors who might feel scared, resistant, or even resentful about moving?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, it really starts with active listening without an agenda, right?
Yeah.
I give them the space to share what they're really feeling, whether it's grief, frustration, or fear, right? And I let them know that their feelings are valid. This isn't just it isn't just a move. it's a life transition. So it often represents, as like a loss of independence, right? Or a change in their routine, or even just like a fear of the unknown. So I meet them where they are, but with patience and also with empathy. You know, um, I also reassure them that I am here every step of the way, not just to find a place, but to make sure that they do feel seen, they feel heard, supported throughout the entire process. At Neighborly Senior Placement, we pride ourselves in providing white glove concierge level service, and we do just that. From the first conversation up to the move-in day and beyond. I stay connected, answer questions, and really help smooth out the bumps that comes along the way when you're so close to them. But here's what I'm seeing based on my experience. Then I provide them with examples that reflect their situation,
Yeah.
and sometimes just hearing it from a neutral voice makes it click. Sometimes they just need that professional to step in to help them, navigate that decision.
So, what's a subtle way you've helped a senior feel empowered in the decision-making process?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good question actually. So, I always like to give my clients ownership over
Yeah.
the process,
Yeah.
no matter how small it is. It's really as simple as that. For example, if I'm touring with a senior and their family, I make it a point to ask for the senior's opinion first
Yeah.
before turning to the family. I want them to feel and know that their voice matters. I also make sure that they're actively part of the conversation
Yeah.
and not just being the person being talked about. Those small moments of respect can really, really go a long way in helping them feel empowered
Yeah.
and included.
Yeah. And I think it's so important that you do that. So, good
Mhm.
job. Now, are there differences in how you support seniors with dementia versus those who are cognitively intact?
Yes, yeah, definitely. So with cognitively intact seniors, it's more about transparency,
Okay.
being really upfront with them, involving them in the decisions, giving them information that they can process,
Yeah.
right? But with dementia, it's really a different approach. Families are typically the main decision makers, so my focus shifts to also supporting them, and at the end of the day, it's really about meeting each of them where they are and adapting my approach to support both the senior and their family members. And it's based on their situation.
Yeah. Okay. I have an interesting question for you. So, I'm a realtor, and a lot of people always think all realtors are the
Mhm.
same, and they're not. Now, I'm going to kind of throw this at you. A lot of people think that placement agents are all the same. How would you
Uh-huh.
describe your niche or specialty?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is such a common misconception. Placement is not, I repeat, it is not a one size fits all.
Okay.
My particular edge really comes from blending my healthcare background with my passion for serving seniors. I've been in the senior living industry, like I said, for 13 years.
Yeah.
I've walked the halls. I've held hands of residents and their families. I've sat in care plan
Yeah.
meetings. I've facilitated support groups. I understand not just what a community offers and how they operate, but what it feels like to also work there day in and day out.
Okay.
So, my specialty is bringing a scholarly lens to this work.
Okay.
I'm not sure if you know, but I am a doctoral candidate in healthcare administration.
Mhm.
And this actually allows me to see the bigger picture,
Okay.
how system functions, where the gap exists, and how to navigate care transitions with both strategy and compassion.
Yeah.
You know, as for neighborly senior placement as a whole,
Yeah.
our specialty is providing personalized, compassionate guidance during a very, very challenging transition. You know, we go beyond just finding a place, right? We
Right.
focus on understanding the senior's unique needs and matching them with a community that fits their preferences,
Yeah.
their care requirements, and also their budget. Um, with our experience in healthcare and senior living, we do offer informed and empathetic support, you know, and our goal is to really make the transition as smooth and as stress free as possible.
Okay. I get it. Good stuff. Now, how do you stay up to date with changes in the industry, especially with Department of Social Services compliance, local housing changes, or care standards?
Yeah, you are asking me all the challenging questions, huh?
I'm prepped.
Um,
Prepared. Yeah. Yeah.
so I make it a point to be in the loop. I follow updates from the DSS.
Yeah.
I'm very active in the senior care networks.
Okay.
I'm constantly reading about policy changes and innovations in senior care delivery. So I'm not just relying on what I see,
Uh-huh.
but I'm actually combining real time updates with strategic knowledge.
Mm.
And that, you know, that really truly helps me advocate better for my clients.
Okay. Now, what role does ongoing education play in staying ahead as a placement agent?
I love this question. If you know me, you know that I value education so much. So, ongoing education is absolutely
Yeah.
crucial. The senior living field is constantly changing, right? Whether it's new regulations, evolving expectations, and family asking more informed questions, right?
Right.
So, my doctoral work helps me look beyond just the placement process.
Right.
And I really think about the bigger picture, like how can we improve systems for the aging? You know, education helps me really serve better and stay ahead in providing the best support for our seniors.
Got it. Good stuff. And I have some, personal questions and whatnot. And one of them is, what keeps you personally motivated to even do this work with seniors?
Um, it's, you know, I worked in your living industry since 2013 and I never looked back. You know, I've never worked with any other population but seniors.
Mm.
And what keeps me personally motivated about this work is really it's the stories,
Um,
right? Every family I work with reminds me of how sacred this work is.
yeah.
You know, I get to help people at one of the most vulnerable crossroads of their life.
Yeah.
And I never take that lightly. So, the resilience of seniors, the love of their adult children
Yeah.
trying to do their best, it's the small wins. And that's what keeps me going, it's definitely a purpose-driven work.
Yeah. Now, what's the most rewarding part of seeing your placements succeed?
Oh, I love this question. So when I hear stuff as mom made a friend, right? Or dad's finally sleeping through the night.
Yeah.
We're laughing again as a family. I mean, those moments tell me we made the right. So when a senior is thriving and their family can finally breathe again,
Yeah.
that's really the reward, and that's where the success comes.
Yeah. What advice do you have for families who are trying to manage complex emotions with logical decisions?
Ooh, okay, another tough question, Dale. Um, my advice is to really just give yourself permission to feel everything, right?
Yeah.
This isn't just a logistical move. It's a deeply, deeply emotional one.
Mhm.
So it's okay to cry. It's okay to feel the guilt. It's okay to feel unsure,
Mhm.
but don't stay there alone,
Yeah.
you know? Bring in the support, talk it out, you know? That's really, where my advice is.
Okay. Now, what's something most people don't know about working with a placement agent that you wish they did?
Um, we're not here to just sell you on anything,
Yeah.
okay? We're here to walk with you.
Yeah.
A good placement agent is, I say, part detective. We're part advocate,
Mhm.
and we're also part counselor. Um, we know the questions you don't know to ask, and we're here looking out for your loved one's safety, their well-being, and their dignity, and we really do care deeply. Otherwise, we would not be in this profession.
Got it. I appreciate you being on this show, by the way. Everything you said has been great, and I think our audience will get a lot of information and just benefit for what placement agents really do. How can people get in touch with you if they'd like to reach out, have questions about placements, and want your help?
Yeah, I mean, you could reach out to on our website, neighborlyseniorplacement.com.
Yeah.
I also have an Instagram where I constantly and regularly post resources there as well. I also have a Facebook account. You could email me and you could even call or text me,
Yeah.
510-250-5885. Um, and I know that it says on there that we're only open from like 8 to 6. But honestly, we are available 24/7. There's going to be times when things are urgent and we'll be there for them.
Yeah. Now, what's your Instagram handle? Can you say it out loud?
Yes. So it's at KAYE
Hmm.
underscore senior living.
Okay, cool. Um, well, thanks, Kayvon, for being on this show.
Yeah.
Hey, and for those of you watching, if your loved one is considering senior living and you need to figure out what to do with their home, let's talk. Schedule a free consultation with me by clicking on the Calendly link located in the video description box for this episode on YouTube. You can learn more about my services at www.simplifyseniortransitions.com. Have a quick question, DM me on Instagram at soldbydale. If you found this interview helpful, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who might need this information. Thank you for tuning in. And thanks, Kayvon, again for being on this episode. And
Thank
we will see
you.
everybody later on the next episode of the Simplify Senior Transitions podcast.